Sneakers are getting less cool by the week. Literally every day there's a new colorway, re-release, collaboration, so many with zero lasting cultural impact. It's no surprise people are getting sick of it. Fewer people want to pay over the odds for the latest hot release, with the TikTok-driven trend cycle meaning that whatever they purchase will have fallen out of favor within the week, replaced by something else. I'm not going to be shedding any tears over scalpers' declining profits, and I actually quite like that many of the most popular shoes at the moment are quite easy to come by and purchase, and that smarter styles like mules and loafers are becoming more in vogue. So why am I holding a limited release collaboration that's expensive, intentionally wacky looking, and impossible to dress up? Is this the spark to reignite the dying forge of sneakers, or is this the perfect representation of why more and more people are rolling their eyes when they hear sneaker collaboration? Your responses on my Instagram story were pretty much equally split on this shoe, which is probably no bad thing. This is Acronym here, collaborating with MSCHF. Is sneaker hype over? Can sneakers be art? Let's talk about it. Before we look at this shoe and all the aesthetic and functional details in depth, first we need a little context on the brands involved to help us understand why. I think we can all agree a collaboration should provide some value and not just logo plus logo equals money. No one would ever do that, right? Who are Acronym? A technical luxury fashion brand heavily associated with the techwear aesthetic, offering high performance and experimental products for urban wear. At face value, a very serious image, often with functionality at the core of its messaging, with many of their images and videos including how their clothing works and what makes it better than a regular jacket, pants, accessories, etc. MSCHF, though, more controversial. Very much defined by their viral products and news-grabbing headlines. The Big Red Boot is their crowning achievement in putting the fashion news cycle in a headlock. You could literally not escape content of people wearing these things. As much an art project as a fashion brand, they've released everything from clothing to food to apps. Their releases are often satirical or contain implicit commentary about the nature of consumer culture. Depending on who you ask, MSCHF buyers are either the ultimate marketing victims or 200 IQ post-ironic fashion buyers. At surface level, these two brands are polar opposites, despite some MSCHF shoes showing up in Acronym product shots. So what happens when these two brands collide? Apparently, the supernormal 2 AG. So let's check it out in hand, on feet, in outfits, and we can talk about whether this actually works. And if MSCHF is an art collective, is this art? Does it have something interesting to say? Spark a valuable discussion about our relationship to the world of sneakers? Or is it just another consumable item in a market segment people are growing increasingly tired of? At least either way, people have some pretty strong responses to this shoe, so let's check it out. To even get to these, you have to rip the box apart to reveal the inner green layer. Okay, it's a bit cool viral TikTok unboxing moment, but it also represents two things. One, the physical experience is important. As if to say this is a very tactile, hands-on product. And two, you open this thing like a toy package. This isn't the collector's box to stay pristine, but something to be discarded while you have fun with the toy that's inside that you can play with. So let's play. And by play, I mean analyze in as much detail as Nike's legal team, because while the MSCHF Super Normal is based on the Nike Air Force 1, the Acronym version is of course based on the Lunar Force 1, released as a Nike collab in 2015, and I will go and find some. So there you go, the regular version, and clearly since 2015, a lot has changed. First off, you'll see the zip is hyper extended, referencing the deconstructed aesthetic present in the original but dialing it way up, and flipping it to the instep. This extension is given structure with wire inside, so you can bend them and stop them colliding as you walk, or put them in some crazy configs. I found walking in these they will sometimes catch and fold open, so they require occasional adjustment. This isn't an issue if you walk like an absolute cowboy Chad, so I will be doing this from now on. Just like the original, the zip works well at letting you easily put it on, and once on, it's fairly comfortable. This is my true size of US 12 or UK 11. I find these fit similarly to the US 11.5 Lunar Force 1. So in my opinion, you don't need to go half a size down, and these were only available in full sizes anyway. Elsewhere, you'll see warped paneling and details present absolutely everywhere, and this extends to the midsole, the outsole, the tongue, the heel cup, even the dubray and eyelets. From a physical construction perspective, I think these are great. It really feels like no detail was overlooked, and they really do invite close inspection. My favorite part is this lateral slash on the outstep, as if if the shoe is being pulled apart or about to burst, revealing acidic green texture underneath. These are fairly heavily branded. Some will likely find this a bit obnoxious, especially if you're not a MSCHF fan. Again, these are all elements integrated with the wave motif, and on an individual level, I do like the way that all of these things are placed. It's just collectively, there is a lot of branding on this shoe, and generally I steer away from that kind of thing in my footwear choices. The tongue is the most egregious thing to me. With a more subtle label, I think I would like this shoe a lot more. The use of green though, I do like, both as a green fan and because it's not too overpowering. This little lateral hint is very alien, very organic, as is the outsole, and the ultra saturated color perfectly suits the psychedelic swirl. I think the outsole is one of my favorite parts of this shoe. Shame that you're not going to see it all that much. Primary green inclusion though is of course on the toe box. Suiting the inversion of the standard shoe theme, this is almost the opposite color to the crimson used on the 2015 release, and rather than at the heel, they've put it in the exact opposite place over the toe. This feels very intentional, so let's dive a little deeper from what the shoe is into why the shoe is. Oh, it's just a shoe, bro. Stop thinking about it so hard. No, it's important to think about how clothing makes us feel, understand the story behind it, so they can be more than products we just mindlessly consume. And through analysis, we can derive more value from clothing and have more interesting conversations than, oh, did bro cop? Top 5 shoes to buy right now? But I know you're all smart, that's why you're here, you get this stuff. That means it's analysis time, and while I analyze, why don't you do me the biggest favor, since this video has no sponsor, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Do give the video a like and think about your hot take that you can write in the comments. I really can't do this without your support, and that is very much appreciated. So this inversion motif, the opposite color placement, the opposite zip, even the wavy, warped details throughout. Aesthetically, it's about turning the normal on its head. I see this as an allusion to the myriad sneaker designers trying to do exactly this all the time. How do we come up with the cool new product? How can we reinvent an existing silhouette? How can we spearhead a new trend? MSCHF and Acronym lay bare exactly how ridiculous this process can be. The manipulation of every possible element to be different, to be warped, to be changed, almost for the sake of it. At the same time, it invites comparison between the digital and the real, as if a designer has just gone sicko mode with the liquify tool on Photoshop with no regard of how that would be converted into a physical product. Or an allusion to how most people will see these digitally on a screen in a world where everything can be simulated and warped and changed. There were only 250 pairs of these made, so there's a very good chance that the number of you watching this video far outweighs the number of physical owners of this shoe. Concerning the relationship to the Lunar Force 1 specifically, I feel like it's an acknowledgement of the desire that people have for the classic to be re-released, and the brand perhaps saying, we're not going to give you the classic, we're going to give you the complete opposite. Or a simpler reading, just to display that Acronym doesn't have to be super serious all the time. And I think that's very true. Acronym is more fun than people let on or is obvious at first glance. Their copy alludes to this, which often crosses into the absurd. Even their products are as much about experimentation as they are about pure utility. Take the J41, a jacket which can be opened and removed while seated, but also an example of how alternative fastening systems could work, and more importantly, how they look. Isn't a jacket that zips up from the back exactly the kind of thing that MSCHF would do? But contextually, the Acronym worldview presents this as, oh, this has a function, actually, this is super useful, whereas MSCHF would take the inversion route and present it as, we're reinventing what a regular jacket looks like. And now I'm finding myself wanting a MSCHF and Acronym collab J41. The recent addition of spikes to Acronym clothing is only further evidence that Acronym doesn't see itself as a performance-only brand and will reshape its own product with a different aesthetic in mind. I think there's other ways these two brands share common ground too. Both are relatively small, design-focused brands with cult fan bases dropping limited products, operating outside traditional advertising avenues, and relying on word of mouth to sell product. Even those products themselves are no compromise expressions of the brand's visions, going to lengths that most won't. Acronym's experimental feature sets, construction, and material use, and MSCHF's, well, it's impossible to argue the big red boots don't turn the symbolic, the cartoon, into the real in as literal and complete a way as possible. I wonder if that no-compromise approach made MSCHF easier to work with than a brand like Nike, for example, who I imagine are very process and results driven. The Acronym team have mentioned in the past Nike collab shoes and colorways have had to be cut from public release for various reasons. The thing you most want to hear from me though, is the collaboration a success? Is this a good shoe? My initial reaction was, This is kind of an ugly shoe. There's just a lot going on. It's a weird shape, the branding is obnoxious, the zipper is really big. My opinion has changed a little in hand, where I can fully appreciate how complete the exploration of this warping of a conventional shoe idea is. And in context of an outfit, the value is more on the wackiness and the unseriousness of this shoe, rather than its cool, tough credentials, which you might associate with something like the Lunaforce one. Like many MSCHF products, I think buyers have to be in on the joke, in on the idea of weird looks well executed, and not taking themselves seriously. I definitely see a place for them on that basis, but most of the time I would probably reach for the Lunaforce one first. Although the 250 pairs did sell out pretty quickly, indicating at least some level of demand, I also feel this didn't quite capture attention in the way of some of MSCHF's previous releases. I don't really feel these went mega viral or influenced the fashion zeitgeist beyond the MSCHF core audience and the Acronym core audience. But I don't think they necessarily needed to. They exposed each audience to the other brand, and whilst being far from MSCHF's craziest or most ambitious project, still created something that could only exist by MSCHF and Acronym coming together. In some ways, this is a safe design. MSCHF already make a warped version of the Air Force One. Acronym have made their version of the Air Force One. These two brands come together, and this is the result. It's kind of ironic that a shoe described as anti-normal, designed to be intentionally weird, is instead just another release in the sneaker calendar, nestled between NFT-powered refract Nike Dunks and Margiela Salomon collaborative mules. There are certainly unique elements on here, as we've shown and discussed, don't get me wrong, but I'm almost thinking this is less ambitious than Acronym's previous release, which had multi-interchangeable heel cups with designs so that new ones could be 3D printed, and laser-cut multi-layer uppers. These didn't even come with a second pair of laces. On that basis, this shoe is a great representation of sneaker market fatigue. It's exactly the kind of thing that a typical fashion buyer is not going to be interested in right now. They're too futuristic to engage with the 80s retro shoe trend, they're too limited and too expensive, they're not really appropriate for smarter looks. Perhaps this in itself is an expression that neither Acronym or MSCHF are the brands to be chasing trends. They will just put out what they personally think is interesting and fun. And these certainly are interesting and fun, and that for me is enough to make me perfectly happy to have these as part of the collection. I think it's more productive to look at things like this as expressions of the designer's creative visions rather than just products to be consumed. What this is saying and what it means to have these two brands collaborate, I think is more interesting than just where you can buy it. I encourage you to take that approach with fashion like this. Think about what it means or what you interpret from the thing in front of you. I don't need a Rothko in my living room to appreciate his work, and I don't think you need to own these shoes to be able to appreciate them or think about them in a little bit more detail. They are weird, they are niche, many people are not going to appreciate them, but I think some will find value by taking a closer look into everything that this shoe is, and maybe the conversations it can generate and little details that make things interesting. Maybe sneakers do have something in common with art after all. Bet you didn't expect MSCHF and Rothko in the same video, but sometimes that's how it is. Really hope you enjoyed this video. I want to do something that's a little bit more than a product review, make this stuff a little bit more interesting. Hopefully you enjoyed that format. Would love to hear your thoughts if you did. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. That, as I said earlier, massively helps out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back very soon for the next one.